M. Night Shyamalan's Glass promises to shatter his box office records. But is there a twist? Let's talk numbers. My name's Josiah, and on my channel, I talk all about box office and movies. On this edition of Whiteboard Movie Wars, we're talking Unbreakable versus Glass versus Split. How do they all fare against each other, and which one is M. Night Shyamalan's big winner? We're talking all about that today. So as you see, I already have a couple of stats up on the whiteboard, and we'll go through these a little bit. So Unbreakable, if you're unfamiliar with these set of movies, this is M. Night Shyamalan's trilogy. It started in 2000 with Unbreakable, Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, a slight superhero movie before comic book movies were actually big. There was a big twist ending in 2017 Split with James McAvoy where the universes were actually connected. And you may remember Split as there was a man with 23 different personalities all stuck in one body. Well, these movies all coalesce in M. Night Shyamalan's final movie in the trilogy, Glass, which pops into theaters this weekend. So there's a 19-year difference in release, and actually there's actually even a studio change in this, and very similar stats right up front with number of theaters right around 3,000 for all of them. The budgets, I mean, these movies makes a buco bucks. It's crazy how much they make compared to the budget. Now, Unbreakable, we'll get into the numbers a bit, but Unbreakable actually $75 million. That was the most expensive one to make. Split only cost $9 million to make, and that movie made a lot of money. And same with Glass, which only cost $20 million. Now, when we're talking studio releases like that, movies like The Avengers can cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but when a comic book movie is very segregated and doesn't have to have all these visual effects, it costs a lot less to make. And we'll kind of get into Rotten Tomatoes a little bit, but right now Split is sitting at the highest at 76%. So let's dive right into these numbers. First off is with Unbreakable. This movie had an opening weekend of $30.33 million, which is a pretty good opening. Now, if you adjust that for inflation, because that was back in 2000 when the average price of a movie ticket was around $5 or $6, that would actually equal to around $49 million today. So a pretty good opening weekend. This movie domestically made $95.01 million. Again, let's adjust that domestically for inflation just to see how well this would do and fare in today's environment. So adjusted for inflation, that's around $155.10 million. So that movie is a pretty great budget movie. I mean, the budget was $75 million, and essentially it doubled it. I mean, I guess that's pretty good. So this movie worldwide did $248.12 million. So this movie, see, it did pretty well back in 2000 for a seemingly, I mean, it's not really based off of anything. It's just an M. Night Shyamalan original movie. So that's pretty good for an original movie, and especially back in the days when comic book movies were not a big deal at all. It really wasn't its own genre yet, whereas it is today. So let's get into Split. This movie did well. It actually beat out Unbreakable, even though people didn't know it was connected yet, with $40.01 million. So that was a pretty good opening, especially for January, because as I've mentioned in some of my other videos, January is a horrible month to release movies traditionally. Now, if there's a good movie, people are going to go out to see it, but typically there aren't many good movies in January. So this movie domestically made $138.29 million. So this is actually the same when you adjust it for inflation, just about the same. You know, it's a 2-year difference between Split and Glass. So it actually did less than Unbreakable adjusted for inflation. And worldwide, This movie made $278.45 million. So this movie did very well internationally as well as in the U.S. And so as you start comparing some of these numbers, it's very interesting to see how it does. Now, let's get into Glass, because this movie didn't come out yet, but I just want to talk about how this movie could do compared to its predecessors. Can it do better? Will it do worse? And will the Rotten Tomatoes score affect it? Because that's a very interesting thing about these movies, is these movies are both fresh, and actually Split is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with the critics. It's very similar audience scores, but right now Glass has a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that is a rotten movie. That means every 3 to 4 people that go to see Glass in the theaters did not like it. Now that could be due to a lot of different factors, but as we've seen with a lot of movies recently, there can be a big divide between critics and audiences, and that audience score isn't out yet, and it will be out, over the coming week when the movie releases into theaters. So we'll see how the audiences do, but I'm going right now based off of the critics a little bit and kind of in these other movies and my predictions. So I actually do think this will have the biggest opening weekend at $50 million. So we go 30, 40, 50. I think there's some excitement, some hype for this movie. People want to see how this trilogy goes, especially from that twist ending in Split. They want to see where's Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis's characters now and what's going on. So let's get into domestically. This movie, I still think it can be one of the best at $150 million. So actually, when you compare that to Unbreakable, it's not going to do as well as Unbreakable, in my opinion, just because it's not rated and reviewed as such a great movie. So that may not get audiences into seats to want to go see this movie. And it's January, people may be dealing with snow and just trying to get to the theater. So that's another factor that plays into it. And worldwide, I actually think this movie is going to do $275 million. So it's still going to do very well overseas, but maybe not as well as some of these other movies. So let's compare all of these and see exactly, who is the best at all of these. So first of all, opening, I have Glass as the highest. Next up, domestically, I actually have Glass making the most, but adjusted for inflation, that winner that has to be Unbreakable. And right now, as we said again, Rotten Tomatoes score is 76%, so that has to go to Split. And coincidentally, that is also the most worldwide, at least in my predictions. We'll see where this movie fares in the long run, whether it makes as much as Unbreakable and Split, and whether that Rotten Tomatoes score has any effect on it. What do you guys think? Will Glass be the best of M. Night Shyamalan's trilogy of movies as far as box office and numbers go? Or will that Rotten Tomatoes score have a big effect? I really want to know your thoughts. And if you're interested in box office videos like this, I do a weekly box office prediction show every single week where I talk about my predictions versus the actual numbers that the movie's made every week. So I hope to see you soon, and I'll see you next time.